Okay, I think we're live. Welcome. It's a little bit past 7. My name's Jacqui Lewis. I'm the clinical nutritionist for BN Multi, and we normally meet on Tuesday night, but I couldn't make it last night, so I apologise. It was short notice. We just had family stuff came up. And so we've moved it to tonight just for this week. Every other week will be Tuesday unless there's some amazing happening going on, but generally not. So every week we meet on the BN Multi page. For those of you who haven't been with us before, welcome. And we have a range of questions that different members of the group have asked during the week regarding surgery or health and fitness or nutrition or weird things that are happening with their bodies or something else that's happened after surgery. So generally it's a guide. It's just my generally nutritional advice and my and then pointing you in the right direction if it's not my job to answer the question as well. So post anything. Don't post anything that's an emergency, obviously, because we don't answer them every single day. Just one second. Hi. And this week we've got a range of questions that I'll answer. And we also have some winners from the podcast competition and also from Transformation Tuesday. So without further ado, I'll get into the questions. The first one is from Ben Murray. Is there a difference in the absorption of multivitamins? This is a good question. Depending on which one I have and how I take them. Example, capsule, chewable, chucking in a blender with liquid. So the idea behind our formulations is they're built for solubility and best absorption. So firstly, we only use the very best forms of different nutrients. My door's open. Which also means that they have the best, what we call bioavailability, which means your body can use them in the easiest way. Our B12 and our folate now are in forms which we call methylated. So your body has to do less with those vitamins than a standard B group or folate to make it usable and effective, or what we call activated. So generally, if you put in a regular B12, which is a cyanocobalamin, or a folate or folic acid, there's things that your body needs to do with those nutrients to actually make them quite usable. Whereas we use methylcobalamin and folinic acid, which are still B12 and folate, but they've got the methyl group on it that you need to make it really readily available. So it helps with absorption and activation, and it also can be better for storage for B12, and it also means they're a better synergistic nutrient as well. So that's firstly why ours are the way they are. We also use calcium citrate, which is recommended for weight loss surgery patients over calcium carbonates as well. So that's also, the research has shown that we use that as well. So initially we prescribe or recommend the chewable multi because it's so soluble, and obviously you chew it up, and digestion starts in your mouth with the enzymes in the saliva. So it's a great way to crunch it up and then swallow it. Doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but with food, the enzymes in your saliva actually start to help the process of digestion. The chewable, obviously, through the testing we've done on the products, it is soluble in the way that it will absorb in the right place at the right time, because it's liquefied pretty much by the time it gets to your stomach. So in the early stages after surgery, that's the best one, because it's just a better guarantee that it's all going to be there for you. It also has the calcium in it. The capsule is a great solution. It's just that in those very first couple of months after surgery, we recommend you open the capsule and dump the contents into either like a tablespoon of yogurt or a little bit of juice if you can manage it, or into a smoothie if you're happy to do that as well. And the reason for that is mainly just the outer coating, the actual capsule itself. We like to make sure that and guarantee that in those early months after surgery that the capsule outer is actually releasing the contents of the product in the right place at the right time. And it's mainly just in that first couple of months where the levels of your stomach acid and all the other stuff that's going on after your surgery can be a little bit on the lower side, and it just guarantees mainly that you will get all those nutrients. So the answer to that long and drawn out question is that if you're breaking open the capsules, you're pretty much taking the chewable. It's the same, it's a powder. So the powders are the most absorbable form because you don't have to break down the capsule. So either way, if you're taking the capsules, you will need to talk to your dietitian about how much calcium you need to take alongside it, because the capsules are totally calcium free, which is why we have the partner product, the BN Cal, the chewable calcium. That's in a citrate form in a 200 milligram dose, so that you can take it with your multivitamin and it's not going to start conflicting with the iron. If you take a calcium supplement, which has, say, 500 or 1,000 milligrams of calcium in it, it can start to conflict with your iron. So it doesn't mean it's always going to happen, but it just means if you separate them by a couple of hours, it's best for iron absorption as well. They use the same pathway for absorption, calcium and iron. So it's like whoever gets there first and fills up all those receptors is the winner. And generally it's calcium. So we can't afford to be missing out on iron. So I think if you're taking the chewable in the early stages, or if you're splitting open the capsule, there's no difference. It's just, they're the same as they basically hit your tummy. They're in a powdered form. They're really absorbable. So I hope I've answered that. The next one's Lynette Litt. Should I be having stomach pains after eating certain foods followed by diarrhea? This rings a bell, like a dumping maybe syndrome. I don't know what sort of surgery you've had, whether it's the sleeve or the bypass, but certainly if that kind of thing is happening, it can either mean that the food's just not getting enough activation with like stomach acid and enzymatic activity in the digestive tract. And it can mean, I'm just guessing because you've just given me a tiny sliver of information, so I'm going to throw a couple of different ideas at you. I'm not saying this is what's happening, but there's things that it could be linked to. And something like this, I would definitely check it out, and also keep a food diary. And if you're getting pain after everything you eat, certainly make sure you go and see someone pretty quickly. But if you're getting random times where you're feeling you're getting stomach ache and diarrhea, keep a food diary for a week and just then track your food intake and your symptoms and see if you can find anything that's connecting the two together. And occasionally after surgery, there's a bit of lactose intolerance. And again, it's just because you've got less enzymes in your stomach. So the lactase enzyme that breaks down lactose is on the low side. So it can be that something's changed and you're just not digesting your food as well as you could be. It also can be that food is going through the sleeve or the pouch a bit quickly, and it's undigested food then in the wrong part of the body at the time. It's just going through too quickly. So please, I would say get that one checked out just to make sure that there's nothing going on there. It could be a number of different things, nothing horrendous, but it could be just that you need to tweak your diet a little bit, and maybe microbiome, having a look at increasing that activity of the enzymes. So food is medicine, and we always look at using food first. So including things in your diet which are high in enzymes, like pineapple, pawpaw, kiwi fruit. They're the 3 enzymatic fruits, and they're great for helping with your digestive process and basically providing you with some enzymes and they connect with the food and help to break it down. Also, those sorts of foods are very good for gut health and the microbiome overall. So if you're playing around with digestion and improving your digestive health, those sorts of foods are really great about half an hour before a meal. So if you include them as a snack or start your meal with enzymatic fruit, just a little bit, doesn't have to be, 2 big pieces of fruit and then your meal, but it's just adding them into the diet on a regular basis will certainly ramp up that microbiome and the enzymatic activity as well. Thank you. And so Paul Dwyer's got a question for us as well. Oh, no, he's got an answer. Paul said, I do. Then if I have too much, you get dehydrated and start to feel very dizzy. So, yeah, that's another thing. If you do have ongoing diarrhea, it's something to really make sure you're not experiencing for too long or too regularly, because you do, again, end up with what's the word? You end up with electrolyte imbalance and dehydration. So it's something to be aware of. As well, a loose stool can indicate some kind of inflammation in the body. So it's also good to check that out as well. Thank you. AJ Matthews asking, how long should it take for drinks and fluids to pass through your stomach? Through a sleeve? I want to make sure I'm not drinking too fast and damaging my sleeve. I think you meant to sip, and sip. So making sure you're not gulping down large, swallows of drink. I think it's recommended about half a cup at a time. Your stomach is pretty forgiving with liquid, not so much with food. So liquids will sort of fill it up like that. And then the sphincter in the bottom of the stomach knows that it's liquid, so it will open and let it through. Whereas if it's food, the sphincter will close and stay that way. So I would discuss with your particular clinician what their recommendations are for quantity of liquid at a time. I don't know how long ago you had your surgery is the other reason I'm erring on the side of caution for recommendation on quantities and how quickly. Food itself, depending on the person and their digestive health, but protein can stay in the stomach for up to about 3 to 5 hours, which is why we encourage and support protein first in your meals, because if you've got a little pouch like that and you put your protein in first, it creates this mass, and then you put your carbs in. So protein then has to be digested for the carbs to actually follow through as well. So the whole reason, or one of the major reasons we encourage protein first, is to keep you fuller for longer and to stop the food passing through too quickly. Protein is actually digested in the stomach itself, so it does stay in there, whereas carbohydrate is digested in the small intestine. So on its own, carbs just go straight through, and that's why you feel hungry. So carbs, love them or hate them, you put them in, say you're eating white bread or pastries or donuts or whatever. And I'm not saying everybody is, but I'm just giving you an example of a refined white carbohydrate, not a complex carbohydrate, which takes a little bit longer. If you're eating those kind of foods, basically their impact on your body is they go in, they don't stay in the stomach, so not really going to keep you full. They go straight through into the small intestine. They spike your insulin, which if you've had any risk of type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes, you definitely don't want that. So they spike up your insulin, and they might give you a bit of a kick of energy to begin with, but then you're hungry again. So it's really not that long before you're wanting more food. You've had this big spike of insulin, and guess what? When insulin is present, listen to this very carefully, when insulin is present, fat loss cannot occur. Ta-da. So what we're ideally with a high protein, low glycemic index diet or complex carbohydrates and good fats, that's the idea of that whole diet, is to keep the blood sugars quite even and stop these big peaks and troughs that those refined carbohydrates are giving you, because basically it's up and down all day, feeling great, feeling tired, feeling great, feeling hungry, serving not much benefit for your health overall. So even if you are eating those kind of refined carbohydrates, if you mix it with a little bit of fat and a little bit of protein, it will slow down that glycemic index, which is the big spike in the insulin that you get from those foods. And it kind of is like a buffering system so that you're not up and down like a yo-yo. Things like those foods, those refined carbs, if you have that kind of stuff for breakfast, you'll be starving all day, because that's that peak in the morning of the carbohydrates, of the insulin raising, and then it kind of sets you up for the rest of the day. So the research shows that people who eat a higher protein breakfast lose more weight and also do it more quickly. And they overall will eat about 25% less calories over the course of the day, just because they're feeling more satisfied. So starting the day with a protein-rich breakfast with a little bit of good fat is a really great start to the day, and it sets you up so that you're not going to hit that kind of afternoon time and go, oh my God, I'm hungry, and start looking for those convenience foods and snacks. So that was a long and drawn out answer to how long does it take for food and liquid to pass through your stomach. Margaret Dalziel has a question. I find every now and then I start shaking and my legs feel hollow. I try eating every 2 hours, which is great, as my restriction is very tight. And I'm just wondering, is that my sugars getting low? It can be that. If you're feeling a bit woozy and lightheaded, it can either be yes, your blood sugars aren't high enough, so it could be that some people aren't eating enough carbohydrate to keep their brain going, and if your restriction is quite tight, it does mean you probably need to eat a bit more regularly, and also depending on your exercise or your workload, how much whether your work is physical or not. I also find when not enough protein's going in, you can get that really tired, kind of empty. It is, to me, it feels like an empty feeling. So with this kind of thing, and it's happening on a regular basis, I'd check in and just maybe take your week worth of food intake, just write everything down for a week, take it back to your dietitian and just say, hey, I'm experiencing this kind of sensation. Here's what I'm eating. Is it enough? A lot of people are actually not eating enough food, and lots of things happen out of that, malnutrition to begin with. But these sorts of symptoms can show up. You just don't have enough energy then to exercise. So the whole, healthy and fit lifestyle isn't on the table because you're just too tired. And also, you won't lose enough fat. So when you're not eating enough calories or enough food overall, the body won't let the fat go as well. So it's a really nice fine balance of making sure you're eating enough food to keep your metabolism ticking over and keep everything feeling healthy and well nourished, and then not too many calories that you're not in a deficit. So I would suggest with that one, Margaret, it's not a great range of symptoms to have on a regular basis, but please go and ask someone about just your eating plan and how that's balanced as well. The other thing, I wouldn't say with the legs shaking, I would say if you're feeling dizzy or anything like that, also get your bloods checked for iron deficiency and things like B12 and that sort of stuff you just need to be on top of. Thank you. Brittany, we've got a lot of questions tonight. It's really good. Please, Brittany Cheel, please give me tips about returning to work and fatigue. I have to go back to work almost 3 weeks post-op, and it's really hard to function and stay awake. And again, I know week 3, it's tough. There's not much energy going in if you're still on purees and, limited food. I would say just look after yourself if you do have to go to work. Look after yourself outside of that by going to bed really early, eating absolutely top-notch, nutrient-rich foods at any opportunity, and also making sure that if you are working, that you're set up well, you've got enough food with you that if you're, even if you're not hungry, you take it home, but make sure you've got enough with you to sustain yourself. And that, whether you've told your work what you've been doing or not, I'm not sure, but just putting in those regular intake of food so that you're not, again, letting yourself run low on blood sugars and that sort of thing as well. And sometimes just making sure you're staying just a little bit active can actually boost your energy levels a little bit. Don't do anything over the top, just a gentle walk or just something to kind of get the body going. But yeah, I don't have a hard and fast solution to that one, but it is about balance. It's about making sure your multivitamins are going in to help you function well, as well as hydration. So it is a big thing to go back to work early, and there is that really steep learning curve after surgery where you're really trying to get your head around how to fit in throughout the day, the recommended protein, the recommended carbohydrates, and the water that you need. So it is about maybe even setting timers in your phone so that if you are busy at work, whether you have a desk job or whether it's an active role, just making sure that at regular intervals, you're making sure you're drinking water and eating enough to sustain you as well. And if things are really not working well and you're just really struggling, I would suggest asking for a bit more time off, and give yourself that if you can, because obviously the fatigue is a message, and it is a time where your body's recovering its major surgery firstly, so you're healing and you're trying to repair, but you're also rejigging your whole endocrine system at the same time. So particularly for women, it can be a time where there's a whole lot of changes going on. If you've had any conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome or endometriosis or anything in that kind of excess, we call it excess estrogen kind of category of different conditions, or reproductive issues, it certainly can show up soon after you've had your operation because your endocrine system's changing so much. So I really encourage people to not rush back to work unless you really, really need to, and also just to listen to your body and maybe see if you can work 4 days a week for a little while and see how that goes. But it just depends on everybody's situation is different, and particularly this year it's totally different. So thank you for asking, and just keep in touch. And if we can support you with, more answers and that sort of thing, let us know. Kez Shepherd Ashby, following surgery, how long can I start exercising? More than just walking? Again, there's a rough guide for general, recommendation, but always go with the recommendation of your practitioners because they know your full story. Generally, I think it's about 6 weeks. It's almost the same as, cesarean section and those kind of things, just to make sure that everything's healed well, and there's not too much pressure on the body. So lifting and that sort of stuff, take it easy to begin with and just kind of work out what works for you. And talk to your team, just to get them. Generally, there's a post-surgery checkup, and at that point, it might be a time to say, hey, how much exercise can I do? Or looking at what you used to do and going back to that or ramping it up a little bit. It is a time where we're pretty excited about getting moving because we're really committed to this new lifestyle. So I can see why people are a little bit impatient, but I keep reminding them that it's a marathon, it's not a race. So please listen to the guidelines from your specific team, and then also based on how you're feeling. They'll generally err on the side of caution, and I think that's warranted, just to make sure that everybody's safe and there's no setbacks. I'd rather take more time to begin with and make sure that everything is settling in well and healing, rather than rush into it and then have a setback where you've got then many more weeks that you can't start your exercise program as well. So again, it's a time to be kind and just see how you're going. Carolyn Saunders, this week's question is, My exercise regime has doubled now that I'm well. I'm finding I'm good with energy before and during exercise, but I crash and burn pretty much straight afterwards. This is a great question. And how do I prevent this? Should I eat before and during exercise? Is it really it's really cutting into my day and I'm starting to fall asleep? I know that feeling. So that tells me often there's not enough carbs. And I did a podcast one of the days last week with Nick Ray, who is a bariatric dietitian. And he's been practicing for about 20 years, but he also does sports dietetics for bariatric patients as well. He calls them bariathletes, and I think that's a great term. And so you don't have to be an athlete to need to worry about your protein, carbs, and your recovery. So there are certain windows of time where you can put in certain macronutrients like carbohydrates, fats, and protein to ensure that you've got the fuel to do your exercise, but also the fuel to recover and back up the next couple of days. The other thing is not doubling things too quickly, because that certainly will make you feel very tired. So I found this a good guideline, and I thought it was pretty interesting that even Olympic athletes, as much as they exercise, they probably do 40 hours a week exercise. I used to work with a guy who was an Olympic athlete. It was crazy. And they only ever increase their workload by 20% a week. So if you've been doing 3 walks a week, 4-kilometre walks a week, 20% of that is all you would add each week. And that can be why people are feeling absolutely shagged, is because they're just they're upping the volume too quickly. And I know Carolyn's had quite a few different interruptions to her recovery and regime. So it may be just a bit too much too soon. But also it can be that you just need to put in some carbs beforehand, about half an hour to 40 minutes before, have something sort of 20 or 30 grams of carbohydrates. And then within about 40 minutes post-exercise, you need about 20 grams of carbs and about 20 grams of protein. And those windows, we call them, are they'll fuel your muscles to do the activity, and they'll also help you with recovery and repair as well. Also check out your iron, and also have a look at your B group. So B group, magnesium, iron are all massive contributors to energy production. And if you can get yourself through your workout, but you're at the end of it afterwards, it can be that you just don't have enough carbs in your muscles, or glycogen, we call it. So try all that out. But again, it's something that the dietitian will give you a really clear indication of what your needs are before and after. Thank you. I'm sure Carolyn's listening. She's always first on generally. Rhonda Hawley, how much weight should I be losing? How long is a piece of string? I'm 6 weeks post-op and I'm losing around 2 kilos every week. My concern is this normal, and does it slow down? It's all very individual. So there's no one who's going to say you need to lose this much every week, because everybody's different. Generally, if your weight loss is consistent, that's a good thing. If it's not, a whole lot one week and none the next, it generally means that you're in the right kind of deficit range and the weight is, slowly dropping off, which is great. I don't know if we could put it into normal or not normal. And does it slow down? There is obviously, when there's abundance of weight to lose and we restrict food intake and increase activity, yes, the fat loss will be quite fast, because there'll be it's available. So then as you get to what we call I think there's a few books they've written about the last 5 kilos. It's like, how hard are those last ones to lose? Because the body, there's not as big an excess. So when body fat is in a large excess, when we get the metabolism right and the caloric intake correct, the body should take care of getting rid of the fat quite well, because it's there to lose. So as you've got less in the bank, it's harder to draw from it. So yes, it does slow down, and it's also not linear. So it doesn't happen like you're saying here, 2 kilos every week. That may change. It might be 2 kilos for 10 weeks, and then it might be 1 kilo, and then it might be 2 kilos. So it's not our bodies are not replicating the same thing every week for many different reasons. So I would just say play your own game is my first bit of advice, not looking at what's normal and what everyone else is doing. It's looking at, are you progressing? Are you feeling better? Is your health changing? And overall, are you getting the outcomes that you were looking for? And then going back to your team and just checking in with them. They'll tell you kind of what's expected and how well it's going. So I don't know how long ago you had your operation either. So 6 weeks, sorry. And so your weight loss will be fairly steady for quite a while if all going well. So keep up the good work. But generally too, 6 weeks post-op, you're also still checking in with your team, so they'll keep an eye on things for you. Also, don't always be so hung up on the scales, and particularly in the first little while too, where there's still inflammation and that sort of stuff in the body. If you're losing 2 kilos of weight per week, but you're also exercising and adding muscle, you may well be losing 3 kilos of fat and, holding and building muscle over a period of time. So look at how your clothes fit and measure yourself on a regular basis. Measure around your shoulders, around your chest, around your waist, around your hips, and keep that in mind. I think we all talk about weight, and it's in the 80s, we used to talk a lot about weight on the scales, but now we look at body composition. So checking out your fat percentage, how much muscle you're carrying, and also how your clothes are fitting and feeling is another way to manage it. On our website, we've got these great, we call them bioimpedance scales, and they body composition scales. So they'll measure all of these different markers on a regular basis and help you keep track of your results from a more holistic point of view, as far as what is your body made out of, rather than what does it weigh, but what is it made out of, how much bone is there, how much muscle is there, that kind of thing. So even it measures how much water you've got on board, which is quite handy to know too. So keep going, Rhonda. I think 6 weeks in, it's still, everything's still settling down. So that is all the questions, and probably plenty of questions. So that's been great. And we add these videos, once we record them, we add the subtitles and we post them on the Australian Weight Loss Surgery podcast website every week. It may not be on Thursday this week because we're recording tonight, but it's always there by the end of the week. And so you can and we also list the topics, so you can select which ones you want to listen back to. So on the website under education, there's a whole bank of all the live videos we've done and all the questions, and they're really helpful. Also, there's a lot of podcasts on the Australian Weight Loss Surgery podcast website, believe it or not. And this week I did Nick Ray. I also spoke with Ananda Mani, who is a master's in chronic pain management, and hers is a really interesting insight into chronic pain, things like headache, endometriosis, lower back pain, that sort of thing, and how to manage that in a more holistic way, I suppose, and also looking at the impacts of diet and nutraceuticals and supplements and that sort of thing on pain. So I thought that was a pertinent topic. We have quite a few patients who end up on the weight loss surgery journey after injury or lay up because they've been injured and had time out of the workforce and that sort of thing. So looking at getting the pain under control, as well as healthy mindset and that sort of thing. It's a really interesting podcast. I have a few more patient success stories we're recording. And I also spoke with Ben Harvey. He's also from Authentic Education, and I'm a big fan of his. That one I was a bit awestruck, so you'll probably hear it in my voice. And he is wonderful. He was actually himself, he was 120 kilos at one time. He's not a large, tall man. So it was a lot of weight for him, and he was quite depressed and had a whole lot of things going on, and he pulled himself out of that, and now he's just like this amazing motivational goal kicking speaker, and he runs a lot of personal development courses. They're all online now. If you can get onto his work, I highly recommend it. There's so much to be gained there. So his is coming up, and I'm not going to tell you the rest. We've got a few more in the pipeline as well. So they're released every 2 weeks. So speaking of podcasts, I did a podcast with Anthony Bonici a few weeks back, and we released it last Friday, and I ran a little competition, some questions to answer from the podcast, and if you answered the questions, which I didn't let anyone post them in the comments, I got them to email them to me, and if you answered the questions correctly, you did win a book. And so the winner of the book is Kim Bo Kim Micah, one of Anthony Bonici's books, and we'll get that out to you, Kim. We've got your details on file. And thank you for playing, and thank you for listening. And also, if you've got any feedback on the podcast or any topics you think might be good to cover, we're all ears, because it helps us to make it more suitable for you. So the prize, Tracy Thomas also won the Transformation Tuesday. So congratulations, Tracy. Today, I don't know when you posted this, must have been on Tuesday last week. Today I hit my goal, 16 months post-op, and I started at 165 kilos. I'm currently 88 kilos. That's incredible. I've lost 77.6 kilograms. I'm amazed at myself and at my loss and my body's transformation. I have my life back, and I'm so thankful. And the photos speak for themselves. You're looking amazing. So congratulations to you, and thanks for being such a sport. We're going to send you a BN Fit kit, we call it. It's a backpack and a cooling towel and a drink bottle and one of our meal planners. So if you're listening, and you can send us an email to support@bnmulti.com. We'll send you a gift. Good work. Christmas is coming up, so we're doing a whole lot of stuff on that as well, things to survive. The tendency to celebrate Chrissy and get a bit festive. So in the next coming weeks in the newsletter and a range of other places, we're helping with ideas on different, even recipes, but also different kind of strategies for managing your eating and socializing. I think there's a lot to be said about that over the Christmas time. So I'm just going to check and see if there's anyone posted any questions. I haven't been watching the actual feed. Here I am. I think that's the one. So 8 weeks, I'm worried because I'm plateauing. That's good. AJ Matthews, measurements are a great indicator. I don't think I was losing much then. I did my measurements. Yeah. So AJ is on board with me, which is good. Saying measurements is the key. I think a lot of people, if you're feeling like you're not losing weight, don't get on the scales, because it's just it messes with your head. And then, yes, definitely, gosh, 130 centimeters gone, AJ. That's amazing. So measuring yourself is pretty rewarding. Excellent. I think we've cracked. Oh, no, there's 12 comments. I'm only seeing about 4 of them, which is weird. I can't see all of those comments, but if there are any questions left over, I'll answer them in the group. I usually wrap it all up and make sure that everyone's had their questions answered. So stick with us. There's a whole lot happening over the next few weeks, and I think we've got kids finishing school in 2.5 weeks in Queensland, and then it's holiday time, which we're not really going terribly far, but at least we get a holiday. So I hope you have a fabulous week, and stick with the questions. Keep sending me questions because it helps us to answer everybody's queries. And I'm sure they're not just your own questions, they're helping everybody else. So have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you next Tuesday. Thanks.